Oh, so let's begin by breathing in together 3 times with some 3 deep breaths. And with a deep in breath, Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Okay. Oh, I have a fun exercise coming up here, which I think we're going to enjoy. So today we're going to emphasize the first one, be impeccable with your word. Take a deeper look at exactly what that means for us. And that's chapter 3 of the 4 agreements. The story of you. The first is the most important of the 4 agreements, be impeccable with your word. Be impeccable. The word is your power of creation, and that power can be used in more than one direction. One direction is impeccability, where the word creates a beautiful story, your personal heaven on earth. The other direction is misuse of the word, where the word destroys everything around and creates a personal hell. We can use the word in 2 ways. Actually, our unity principle is we create our own reality with thoughts in mind, right? It's exactly the same. So for thousands of years, humans have tried to understand the universe and nature, and mainly our own human nature. We also make a lot of assumptions. As artists, we distort the truth and create the most amazing theories. So he calls us artists because the knowledge that we have in our heads, we got by agreement, which symbolizes what we experience in the world. So in that sense, we're artists. We distort the truth. We create the most amazing religions. It's part of our knowledge. We create stories and superstitions about everything, including ourselves. And this is exactly the main point. We create them. And we know people create different stories, different religions, different superstitions. I had a friend of mine just send me some pictures in his backyard. He had been to Ireland lately. His ancestry is Irish. And in Ireland, they believe in fairies as part of the folklore. So in his backyard, he had created a fairy garden. He had little fairy houses and little fairy butterflies and a little fairy pub where the fairies could go and have a drink. So of course we know it's just for fun, but then a part of us likes to believe those stories. Childlike part of us. So here's the third basic unity principle. We create our reality through the thoughts we hold in consciousness. I think this first agreement, be impeccable with your word, is just a deeper exploration of how we create our reality through the thoughts or the words we hold in consciousness. Every one of us uses the word to form our opinions, to express our point of view. Countless events are happening all around us, and using the attention, we have the capacity to put all these events together in a story. I think this is so apropos in today's consciousness and environment. We look at something that's going on, perhaps on the television, and we see that half the country creates one story about it, and the other half of the country creates an altogether different story. So it depends where we place our attention. Where we place our attention, how the story we create. We create the story of our own life. Someone who first meets says, "Who are you?" "Oh, well, tell me about yourself." "I am this, I do this, I do that. My work is, I was born here, parents," and so on. So we create that story depending on what in our life we gave our attention to and what contributed to our story. We create the story of our family, our mothers and fathers, and we create the story of our country. Sometimes muckrakers go back into the history of our country and look at what quote unquote really happened during certain episodes, the Revolutionary War, for example. And the story they came up with is not in alignment with the story of our country that we learned at school. So people sometimes get upset about things like that. We like the story of our country. Parts of it we don't like. We actually create the story of humanity. If you watch PBS, you see these great stories of the evolution of the earth, story of the entire world, and the place of humanity in it. All these stories. Every one of us has a story that we share, a message that we deliver to ourselves. So that's the key thing. We deliver that story message to ourselves. And it's a message that we deliver to everyone around us. And it's a story that we create. So we're creating our reality through the thoughts we hold in consciousness. You create an entire virtual reality in your mind, and you and we, me, I, live in that reality. So we think these thoughts. I was having some thoughts this morning, and I was then thinking to myself, oh gosh, I don't like those thoughts that much. And I thought to myself, well, gee, these are just thoughts in my mind, but it's not who I am. I am not my mind. These are just thoughts in my mind. It helped give me some perspective and separation on those thoughts that were living in my mind, which felt so real. When you think, you're thinking in your language. You're repeating in your mind all those symbols that mean something to you. Don't you know how sometimes something comes up in your mind, something happened, and you just can't get it out of your mind, and it goes over and over again in your mind? That same story, it means something to you. Your mind latches onto it. I'm talking to you knowledge, what you believe you are, not to you, the human, what you really are. This is the key distinction, I think, that helps us to, well, when it's appropriate, to step back from our own minds, see what's going on. So the you knowledge is the reality in our minds, what we believe we are, but the real you, which I put in caps, is a human. It's got fingers and hair and eyes. It's got feelings you can step back from and look at. All those things that we experience. So do you see that? There's actually two yous. The you we believe we are, our stories, and the you, capital U, that we experience, the human. I think just making that distinction between our story about ourselves, which is all the knowledge in our heads, and the physicality, just who we actually are, is helpful. Especially when our mind starts working against us and saying things that don't make life so pleasant. You, knowledge, come from the symbols you hear in your head. All those stories going on and on. From all the opinions of the people you love, you picked up things. People you don't love, you got some stories from them. The people you know, and mostly the people you'll never know. How many stories we picked up from people we'll never know, things we read in books, we see on the television, we read in the media. All in our head. So that's our knowledge. Who is talking in your head? You make the assumption that it is you. We do. That's us talking to ourselves. But if you are the one who is talking, then who's listening? You're the one who's talking. Who's listening? Your mind's going over things. Who's listening? These questions are all designed to help us get a little separation from the thoughts in our mind, reality that we create through our thinking. You, knowledge, are the one talking in your head, telling you what you are. You, the human, are listening. So we're listening to all those stories. But you, the human, existed long before you had knowledge. That person, that capital U, existed long before you had thoughts and knowledge. Just like any child, before he or she learns to speak, you were completely authentic. One of the reasons we're so attracted to young children before they learn to speak, they're completely authentic, and so are we. You didn't pretend to be what you are not. No pretense. No need to protect yourself from the opinions of others. Without even knowing it, you trusted yourself completely. Complete trust with yourself. You loved yourself completely. All those opinions and stories from other humans were not in your head already. Just in a state of trust and love. Isn't that interesting how all those stories got in our head? And that's who we think we are, but what happens if we step back from them? Your mind is full of knowledge, but are you using the word when it comes to describing yourself? How? How are you using the word when it comes to describing yourself? How are you doing that? When you look at yourself in a mirror, do you like what you see, for example? I remember years and years ago, I decided to look at myself in a mirror. And I had trouble doing it. I looked at myself and there was something about what I seemed to see that bothered me when I looked at myself in the mirror. I can't even hardly remember what that experience was now, but I was uncomfortable. After a lot of spiritual work, I developed a different outlook on myself, and I decided it was important to look in the mirror from time to time. I was up there brushing my teeth, doing whatever, and to look deeply behind my eyes. And I found a new way of looking at myself. And I noticed that if I put a little smile on the corners of my mouth, it helped me to see myself in a more true light. Do you like what you see? Do you judge your body and use all those symbols to tell yourself lies? Is it really true that you are too short or too tall? Is it really true that you're too heavy or too thin? Is it really true that you are not beautiful? Is it really true that you are not perfect just the way you are? Okay, now we're in for some fun. It's interesting to hear all these things, but sometimes doing an exercise makes everything come to life. So I've tried to come up here with an exercise that will give us a few laughs, because when we laugh, we sometimes open up the gates of insight to our laughter. So you ready to do a little exercise?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. Deep breath. Exercise, the story of you. Pretend that you are on a quiz show. And if you see those quiz shows, Vanna White, Jeopardy, and all those quiz shows, so we're on a quiz show now. The grand prize is $10,000. $10,000. You would like to get the money. So here's the scenario of the quiz show. Remember, $10,000. An expert mind reader can read your mind, and she will be rewarding the prize. So we have a mind reader here. She can read your mind, and she will be rewarding the prize. She will listen to your mind for the correct answers to the quiz. You will have exactly 30 seconds to complete the test, the quiz. So it's not going to take very long. There's just 30 seconds. Be sure to listen to the instructions carefully and then think fast. You only have 30 seconds to win the 10,000. Remember, only 30 seconds. Ready? Get set. Put my timer on. Go. Think to yourself your 3 most important flaws. For example, a character flaw, procrastination, trust, honesty. A physical flaw, your appearance, some activity you do. A mental flaw, your memory, negativity, some lack. Okay, we've got 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, stop thinking. Time's up. Everyone stop thinking. Please, no more thinking. The test is over. No more thinking. Okay. Now I'm going to consult the expert mind reader to see who the winner is. So hold on. Yes, the winner is. So just wait while I consult her. Oh my God. The winner, the consultant just told me that you're all so great that she can't pick a winner and she resigns. So she's not going to tell us anything. She's going to keep the money herself. All right, so you can decide who the winner is. So maybe this was fun for you. Sometimes if we do something quickly and just allow our minds to come up with whatever's there, we get some interesting results. The interesting thing is that mind reader not only looked at what was in your mind, she also looked deeply at what was in your subconscious mind. And there may have been some faults hiding down there that didn't pop right up for you in the 30 seconds, but she saw those as well. Got really frustrated and resigned. So that's the exercise. I don't ask you to share any faults, but is there anything that you might like to share with regard to that exercise before we push on?
It was hard to think that fast, I think. There are too many choices.
So perhaps we needed more time?
Maybe a minute for each one instead of 30 seconds or something, maybe.
Good. All right, thank you.
Wait, do you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Dylan.
Okay, yeah. All right. Yeah, I think that was a useful exercise, and that's something that I've also been thinking about. Kind of like my main challenges in life, or the main things that kind of like keep us from being able to perform at a high level in our lives, or to live a full life. Yeah, I think the 30-second limit can be helpful because you can think about things that are like the most immediate or that first come to mind. But at the same time, as like a deeper exercise, it's also deeper to maybe look into like the sources of those flaws, or if you do perceive you're flawed in some way, then what is like the source of that flaw? Is it something that you're doing or some belief that you have, or is it not like a problem after all?
Right.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing you say, Del, is if some flaws come up for us, it might be useful to try and investigate and see what the sources of those flaws are, where we got that opinion. Because recreating that experience when we got that flaw, maybe when we were 8 years old, someone said to us, oh, you're stupid. Oh, you're fat and ugly. Would you like to know how to lose 10 ugly pounds? Cut off your head. Something we used to say. So it may be useful to find where those perceptions of flaws entered our consciousness. And yet, Even though that may be helpful, we may not be able to get in touch with it. If we can, great. But even if we can't get in touch with it, just noticing it as part of our story gives us a little bit of separation from it, so that maybe we can choose something different if we want. And that's the whole basis of unity, affirmations and denials. You know, we have an idea in our mind that I'm not this, I lack that. We can use a unity denial, saying, nope, that's not true. And then we can affirm what is a deeper truth. Here's what Don Miguel Ruiz has to say. Can you see all the judgments that you have about yourself? Well, maybe not in 30 seconds. But even as we're talking, maybe maybe that exercise stirred up something in you, some judgment you have about yourself. Every judgment is just an opinion, a point of view. That's what it is. And that point of view wasn't there before you were born. It wasn't there. That's why we create our reality through the thoughts we hold in mind. It wasn't there. You have agreed to hold all of the messages in your mind. And now you think so many things about what you are, but are they the truth? What about those flaws that may or may not have come up? Maybe you're saying to yourself, well, yeah, that's a flaw, but it's the truth. Or is it? So how do we determine amongst those opinions of ourselves what's really true or not? You know, we can always find evidence. Evidence is always out there. It's just like in the national discussion, for example, of the protests that are going on. There is tons of evidence for looking at the protests as good, and there's plenty of evidence for looking at the protests as bad. Same with the things we think about ourselves. So it's not the evidence. We can always find evidence. How do we know if those opinions are the truth? You see, the problem is not really knowledge. The problem is believing in a distortion of knowledge. And that's what we call a lie. A distortion of knowledge is a lie. So how do we know if something's a lie?
When you see the video.
We see the video. Well, here you go. The real you is physical. It's the truth. Same with the video. The real video is physical. It's the truth. What you believe about yourself or believe about the video, your knowledge, your opinions, your judgments are not important unless you want to create a better story about yourself. This goes for the video as well. The real video is physical, it's the truth, but what you believe about the video, your knowledge, your opinion about it, your judgments are not important unless you want to create a better story about the video. Better story. It's a different way of holding it. That's why it seems to me when people see that video of an officer of the law for 8 some odd seconds kneeling on the neck of George Floyd, right? That's his name?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Some people see one thing, which is the murder of an innocent man. I can't breathe. And interestingly enough, some people see something else. So what's in the video is physical, it's the truth. But what we believe about the video or opinion of it, in a way, isn't important unless you want to create a better story about that video or yourself. This is what he is saying. It sort of goes against the grain of our thought, doesn't it? Because we see something, it's real, and we have an observation, an opinion about it, and that's real. We're not about to let go of it. And we're amazed, we're astounded, we're outraged that not everyone sees that video the same way we do. And it's people might look at you, the real you, and then hear what you believe about yourself to make a parallel, your knowledge, your opinion of yourself, and say, my goodness, you've got the wrong video in your head there. Those aren't important unless you want to create a better story about yourself. Here, what we're doing is shaking up our normal way of dealing with things to give us the ability to make discernments so that we can always choose to step back. What was the famous saying? Between action and reaction, there is always a space. Always a space, and in that space lies our freedom to choose. Somehow I always have difficulty remembering who's the famous man from the doctor in the German Nazi concentration camps who said that.
Mangala.
Right. So between the action, the video we see, our experience of ourselves, and our reaction, there's always a space. And in that space lies our freedom to choose what we believe about the video, what we believe about ourselves. And why can't we, in that space, create a better story? If that's something we wish to do in that space. Truth or fiction, your story is as close as you can get by using symbols. So true or not, you're doing your best using symbols and words. The question is it beautiful? Is it beautiful? Be impeccable with your word means never using the power of the word against yourself. It means accepting only a beautiful story. Use the word in this direction. Love for yourself. Be impeccable with your word means never using the power of the word against yourself. It means accepting only a beautiful story. Use the word in this direction. Love for yourself. How are we doing with all of this today? This concludes the prepared remarks that I have. Is anyone seeing things any differently than our normal way of dealing with what comes up?
Yeah, I wanted to add a few things about the story. Yeah, which is that when we make a story, um, almost by necessity, we choose to include certain things that we see and also exclude certain things that we see. Because, as you know, language itself cannot capture all that happens. And then even within the story, it's also like another layer of what language do you choose to include in the story and what observations do you want to include in the story. And for that reason, um, while we might have a story, it might have lots of things that are true in it, it is guaranteed to not contain the whole truth.
Yes, so what I hear you saying is we create our story about ourselves and about things we see, videos or experience in person. We create our stories first by where we place our attention. Where are we placing our attention? So what I'm going to say may be controversial, but being a person that likes to provoke, I'll just go ahead and say it. For me, when I saw that video of the officer pressing his knee on the neck of that poor fellow who couldn't breathe, my attention was on that man who couldn't breathe, who was dying. And I felt outraged. This was wrong. But I could see, if I put my provocative hat on, so how some others might place their attention on that officer. Their attention's on the officer, and they're saying, oh, there's an officer doing his job, doing what he thinks best. Hard for me to take that kind of a position, but if I work at it, I can say, well, maybe there are people who put their attention on the officer doing his best, and that's what happened. And so where are we putting our attention? If you forgive my provocative comments, because this is such a sensitive subject, I apologize. Where do we put our attention? Like you said, Della, where are we putting our attention? And when we put our attention in a particular place, what within our minds comes up? What are the reactions in our mind with regard to where we put our attention? So if we put our attention, as Don Miguel Ruiz says, on what we say about ourselves, be impeccable with your word means put some attention on what you're saying about yourself. Put some attention there and notice what you sometimes say just by reaction about yourself. Something you say about yourself. Oh, you know, nobody's perfect, meaning I'm not perfect. There's some aspects of me that are not perfect. I have some flaws somewhere. I don't ride a bicycle very well. I have certain flaws. I think that was a flaw that Susan mentioned the other day. Oh, I don't ride a bicycle very well. Minor flaw, but a flaw. That's why nobody's perfect. So in what aspects, what teeny little areas in your body are you not perfect? In your what you say and what you do, how you look, your memory, your character. Are you willing to agree to be impeccable with your word means only accepting a beautiful story And if there's some aspect of the story of yourself that's not beautiful, well, like you said, Della, maybe to go underneath that and look to see what the source of it is. But even if you can't find the source of it, to use the unity technique of affirmations and denials and deny that not beautiful thing you said is true, not true, not true. It's just an observation I have on who I am, and then to create a positive affirmation to replace that negative one. And by using the word in this direction, we love ourselves even more. Anything else come up for you guys before we close today?
Yes. Yeah, there's one other thing. Yeah, so I guess with regard to your comments of George Floyd, I guess to me, obviously a lot of people disagree with what the police officer did, and so do I. But at some level, as everyone does what they think is best given their point of view, and sometimes people, don't often see like the full magnitude of what they're doing, and so that's why spiritual teaching, in particular, can be important because if it's done properly, it can allow us to get more insight into our lives and how we live it and how we can live it with greater awareness. So it's not that anyone is, well, evil in like the traditional sense, but it's more like sometimes we lack understanding, and that leads us to do things that are not beneficial for ourselves and for other people.
Yes, I got it. I'm guessing that policeman, although I don't know the situation, was provoked. And I'm guessing, like you say, Della, his attention was not on the harm he was causing that poor man, but rather his attention was on some provocation that he was experiencing. And I'm guessing that's the story that he put his attention on in his head, the provocation that he experienced. So,
The problem is,
yes,
he'd been charged with that numerous times before. He overreached in so many cases.
I agree with you.
I don't know if you can excuse it, especially when there are 3 other officers standing around. Obviously, the man on the ground can't be that much of a threat.
We're in
I
total
think some
agreement,
people,
Jan.
yeah, okay.
We're in total agreement. So how is it that a man, as you say, who's done this before and should have known better, and had 3 other officers around, and the person he was kneeling on wasn't a threat, how in the world could he have done such a thing? I don't know. It's horrible. And yet, there must have been something going on in that officer's mind. As Adela pointed out, he may not be an evil man, but he certainly may have been doing an evil thing. I don't think his attention was on the evil thing he was doing, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
So the point is, we all have our outlooks on what we're doing and the rightness and wrongness of it.
I can excuse a momentary punch or something like that, but for an extended period of time for something to happen, to me, it's sort of inexcusable. I was looking at another video of those military or whatever they are, Homeland Security in Portland, with a pipe hitting a naval veteran over and over and over and over again. You know, maybe once, and then realizing what you've done, but not over and over and over again until you finally break his hand, you know. And I think these people are, I don't know, they're just raised to be bullies and mean. And this is what they go into. They go into this kind of work because they think it detracts them. I don't know. I don't think a lot of these police officers who get dismissed from one city just go to another city
That's right.
and do the same thing over again.
Well,
So I don't know.
we're in agreement here in
Yeah.
both these instances. However, I don't think that trying to look at what's going on in another person's consciousness is to excuse it. I do not excuse any behavior that's wrong or inappropriate. But I am willing to look at the consciousness of the people doing it, even though I find the behavior totally inexcusable. That's the distinction. Are we willing to look at what the heck was going on, possibly, in that person's
Right.
consciousness? Did it have something to do with where they were placing their attention? And we just don't know.
I watched a good movie last week or so. Is it time? Is time up? Called Best of Enemies. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen it.
It's a true story about a group that was brought together in a town to decide whether they should integrate their schools because the black high school had burnt. And they got together what they called a charrette, and it was led by another black community organizer to get everybody together and decide what to do about it. And the one guy that they focused this story on was actually head of the Ku Klux Klan, and that it was in 1970 in that town. And another woman, a black woman who was a community organizer. And they got to know each other through this charrette and other people in the town. And at the end, the guy who was head of the KKK voted to integrate. And his gas station was almost destroyed by the white people in town. And then the black people lined up to get their gas there, and they were never allowed to get gas there before, but they became his customers. I mean, it all turned around and they became lifelong friends after that. But when he gave his speech at the end, he showed his membership card to the KKK, and he said, "For the first time in my life, I cried, because for the first time in my life, I was accepted in an organization that cared for me." And you can understand him talking that way. He said, "Now I don't believe what they say." So he tore up his card. But he explained why he became a member of that group. And it wasn't necessarily, I think, the hatred, but because he was accepted. And he was poor like everybody else. He didn't have anything. But he had this acceptance from this group, evil as it was. But he realized that in the end. I don't know, it's a good movie, I think, and it's a true story. And afterwards, both he and the other woman went and toured universities and places throughout the country and told about their experience.
I think I've heard that story as well, Jen. It is a moving story.
Yeah.
What I observe when you tell the story is where this man, the Ku Klux Klan man, put his attention, and how by choosing where to put his attention, he saw life in a different way. So initially, he put his attention on being accepted by a group, and he joined the KKK. And then when he got together with another human being, this black person, and put his attention there, his natural humanity and empathy arose, and his attention was there. And through placing
Right.
his attention there, he transformed himself and his views. But of course, not all the other white citizens of his little town
No, they didn't.
went
They
along with
didn't.
it.
But he was the leader, and I think he became an example to them. So I don't know exactly what happened in the town after that, but he suffered from the decision he made to change. Yes, he did.
So how can we use stories like this to help us look at ourselves and the stories we have, the opinions we have, and rather than the stories and opinions about others, how can stories like this help us to look at ourselves? Stories we tell about ourselves, look deeply underneath, and being willing about ourselves to only tell a beautiful story. So I suppose that's our homework, and we'll carry on with this next week. We need to
Okay.
close. Any final comments before we close today?
Yeah, I had one other comment. When it comes to understanding people and why they do certain things, I was sad sometimes when someone like proposes why, for example, a police officer might do that, then it's sad that oftentimes people that are, I guess Jenny in this example might say that, oh, but that's like inexcusable. And I think that, well, Steve, as what you said earlier, the reason why we look into this is not to like excuse, or like not excuse or justify any behavior, but it's more to understand other people and why they act the way they do. Because if we do not understand them, if they do not understand themselves, then they cannot transform themselves. They cannot change their behavior.
Right.
And
Yeah, you're right about that.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Della. I think that really hits the nail on the head. We're not looking to excuse behaviors. We don't want to excuse others. We don't even want to make excuses for our own, but rather to dig a little deeper to see how we can not only transform ourselves, but be an example so that others are transformed just by being in our presence. Any final comments before we close today? Gosh, thank you for the lovely sharing we did. We got some things off our chest, and maybe we got to experience holding things a little differently. So we now focus on our physicality and focus on our breath. Let's focus on the breathing for 3 deep breaths. And with a deep in breath. Shanti, 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 my friends.
Be careful in this heat.
I know it's hot out there.
Even the birds aren't out there.
It's too hot. All right, so
Have a
we're
good
going to
week.
say goodbye. Have a good week and enjoy the service if you choose to watch it at 11. And
Yep.
see you next
I
week.
will.
Love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Love you. Bye.